going to go ahead and get started. This is the fulling mill. This is a size 12 hook, really just a generic hook. I'm going to go ahead and start our thread, and I do like to start a little bit behind the eye of the hook and then progress down to the bend. I'm going to go ahead and have my bad scissors here, but first material is going to be, this is a tailing pack from Whiting, and I think the color is it's like a brown or badger brown or something like that. We're going to pull one feather, and just like a pheasant tail, I'm just going to kind of pull a clump off the side of this, and that is going to be our tail. So with my right hand, I'm going to come in and place that on top just to kind of get a generic measurement, and then going to do a couple of thread wraps, and these are, semi-tight. I like to do them kind of semi-tight at first because I want to be able to adjust, which I'll do right now, to get the tail what I feel like looks best. So I usually like a little bit shorter on this style of wet fly, and then I just wrapped all the way back up to where the dubbing is going to eventually be. So the next thing that we want is this Life Flex. These are rubber legs. It's an awesome material. I end up using these in all sorts of nymph patterns and things, but we're going to take one strand, and it's kind of like a flat rubber, and it's super strong. This is the olive brown, and we are going to go ahead and tie that in, and this is going to become the rib of this pattern. So we're tying that in kind of tight, and I'm going to pull tighter with my left hand. It's really strong. I'm going to try and keep this body as even as possible, with the idea being that when I'll have to do less work later. So I've gone down, and now I'm going to progress my way up towards where the dubbing will be. And now I've got this really clean and level body, you can see. And if you don't have that, you need to make sure that you go back with your thread wraps to get it right, because when we go to put resin on, and this process will be really annoying, which is just wrapping up, doing what we call like an open spiral, so you can see the thread color underneath. And that's where, with this one fly, you can get a million different color combinations to imitate whatever insects you're using. And this material, it is a little finicky to work with, and tying it in can be kind of a struggle. But my favorite way has been, I do like 3 or 4 wraps. You see me doing here. I go in front of it and just kind of make like a ridge that I'm going to then wrap it over again. So I basically have 2 different times that I've covered this material over. And so that's going to be the body. So we're going to take some Solarez Bone Dry at this point. Open it up. You'll see, I love this stuff. It's got a little tiny applicator to it, so it's like a miniature little paintbrush. And I just, kind of hit the sides of the jar. You don't want a bunch to come and coat this. You just want barely enough to cover the threads and then the latex material. And that's what's going to make this fly last a lot longer, and it gives it that cool, shiny look. So I typically do this in 2 parts. Had a big glob. So I do this in 2 parts. I'll cover the top and kind of get down the sides a good bit, and then I'll harden that with the UV light, and then I'll come in and I'll get the underside as well. So right now I'm just kind of like getting in the ridges. This is the light that I prefer to use. I like the rechargeable ones. Saves money long term. You don't have to buy batteries every week. Just going to go in and hit the top of that with the UV light, and that's going to harden that, and that's what's going to give you that pretty durable shell. And I probably don't have to go in and hit the bottom, but I'm going to, because that's what I always do. So I'll just turn that upside down with the vise and get the little applicator bottle. Just kind of lightly coat that. Again, you don't want globs. I like to be able to see the individual ridges. And this technique, you can do it with nymphs or Frenchies, anything like that. So here's another little trick I do. When I have too much, rather than taking my finger, I just took a stem of a feather and just kind of whack it out of the trash bucket and then throw it back in the trash bucket. And then hit it with the UV light, and now we have our resin-coated body, or thorax. So the next material is Ice Dub Peacock. If you've watched any of the fly time videos we've done, you've probably seen this material before because I like it a whole lot. Take a tiny amount, I mean tiny amount, because this is just basically going to create a little tiny ball of dubbing that the partridge is going to rest against, which helps it flare out. So next ingredient obviously is going to be the partridge, which this is one of the premium packs. This is the whole skin. You can just get a grab bag, but this is some of the feathers from the neck area of the partridge. So I'm just going to pick one. All of them look good, but it's mainly just finding one I like. Right hand hold the tip, left hand pull off the fuzzy fiber material, and then right hand hold the tip again, and I'm going to kind of stroke back those longer fibers to create this sort of triangle, and this is going to be a tying anchor point, or the place where we're going to actually tie that in. It's infinitely small. I mean, the camera's not going to pick it up, I'm sure, but we will go ahead and I try to make that tying point not go beyond the eye of the hook. So I'll keep it really small. I'll wrap it in pretty tight because this is one of the things that often slips out. And this feather I picked is a little thin, so it might be a little annoying to work with. But we're just going to stroke all those fibers back and then wrap this feather around the thread. So you can see I'm kind of pressing it up against that dubbing ball that I've created. And it is a little finicky to work with, especially when you select the feather like I just did. But what's a little bit easier is using a feather that has a little bit thicker stem. So I'm going to hold that in place with my left hand. Probably get one more wrap. And you probably won't be able to see what I'm doing here, but with my right hand, I'm just literally holding the stem in place, and then my left hand is looping over the stem with the thread. And now I'm just holding all of those fibers back. And they're all pretty much going back, but that helps make a really clean head, because that's always what you're working towards. You want to be able to use this thing, and if you cover the eye with thread, then you can't use it. So I've trimmed up the extra little bits. I grab my whip finishing tool, and I'm going to use my whip finish to clean up the fuzzy ends, or the things that are protruding. And so that ties the knot, cleans up the head. I'm going to go ahead and trim that. Got my nice scissors now. And then I'll hit that with a little bit of UV, and that's the fly. And the basic concept of this, I mean, it's a wet fly here, obviously, but you could put a bead head on that and make it a good nymph, or use that on a Frenchie. You could try it on a dry fly. It's probably going to sink because resin does have a little bit of weight to it. But it's a cool pattern. I mean, it looks like a mayfly, looks like a minnow. I'd fish it. I do fish it. Hit that with the black light or the UV light, and we are good to go. Just like that. Straightforward. Enjoy it.